I'm your host, Sarah Baus, and welcome to Attainable Podcast. Hey guys, and welcome to the Attainable Podcast. My name is Sarah Baus. If you're new, I'm so glad you're here, and you're here for a very, very good episode. I talked with Jen Lauren, who is a YouTuber, a PR specialist. She has so many roles, and we talk about that in this episode. She has developed multiple streams of income for herself. She lives in New York, and she is in her 20s and killing it. Her journey is really, really interesting, and how she totally paved the way for a new way to work. So I know you'll love it. I know you'll love her. And without further ado, here's Jen. Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for coming on Attainable Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to jump into it.
Yeah, when I met you on our first call, I was like, wow, she's got a lot to say. And I love your story. And you're the first person to have this perspective on multiple streams of income and how you can have jobs and everything that I've heard. And it stuck with me in the weeks after. So I'm excited to have this conversation now. Just to kind of get us started, you currently hold several positions and several streams of income. So can you kind of go over those and give us an understanding of where you are right now?
Yes. So what are all of my jobs? That's the question.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll go in order from like most time consuming to least. I would say my main hustle is my PR job. So I went part-time on my full-time job, which is working at a PR agency. So right now I only work on one PR client, and that's the class, which is a workout class. So that's about 10 hours a week. And then I also work for Shelby Church, who's a YouTuber as well. And I edit her vlogs a few times a week. And when she's in town, I actually go out and shoot with her, whatever she needs. Sometimes I help her with like coordinating a series coming up and like brainstorming. Let's say she was doing, I'm just going to make something up, but she was doing the best hamburgers in the city. Like I would help with like the research for that. So those are some of the things I do for Shelby. So the hours on that kind of vary as needed. And then I also work at Rumble, which is a boxing studio. So that's kind of like my service-based industry job, but it also all really intertwines and connects because workout classes is all part of my brand and my PR situation. So that's another thing I do, a few shifts a week. And then lastly, I have my own stuff going on and work for myself. So I have my YouTube channel, my podcast, Dare to Self-Care, and I'm starting to dabble on TikTok. I do Reels. So that's all just to promote my brand. But in a nutshell, I also offer some like freelance work. I help once in a while if any content creators are looking to get help organized. My friend Taylor Woods on YouTube hired me for a few consultations just to like help her get organized. So things like that I'll do on the side as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I always make jokes like I have 17 jobs. But
yeah, you are busy, and I love that. So can you give us a story a little bit of kind of how you entered this space? Because not long ago, you mentioned it, you had a full-time PR job. Can you kind of give us a rundown of what that looked like?
Yes. So you want a rundown on what the full-time job situation?
Yeah, that kind of that story that you were telling me when we first met about like when you decided to leave and then that transition out and into this multifaceted, multi-job place that you're at now.
Multi-job situation. Got it. So I had already had a YouTube channel for about, I want to say a year and a half, before I left my full-time job. So I had been hustling for almost 2 years on my YouTube channel. And then I had a podcast for about 6 months because I had my podcast started in January of 2021. And then end of 2021 around November is when I left. So I'd already been side hustling for a while. And I think it just got to a point where a whisper started getting louder and louder. Like when I first started everything, I knew that like ideally I would love to do this full time one day in like 5 years. Like it was definitely not something that I felt was in my future because we're always told, or in my immediate future, because we were always told you can quit once you've like quote unquote made it, or you're exceeding the salary that you're getting from your full-time job and you're making more on social media, like all of these things that we've been told, which I am in agreement with in terms of like you got to either have a plan or like know how you're going to make money outside of this. So really it just got to a point where all of my energy was going into this full-time job and none of it was being able to go towards my side hustles because I was consistently burnt out. And it got to a point where like the thought of editing a video at night was literally like it would freeze me in my tracks. I'd be so overwhelmed by the idea. So what I wanted to be my end game, which was YouTube and podcasting and everything, I couldn't really do what I needed to do to get there because all of my energy was going to this full-time job. So eventually the whisper got louder and louder, and it would get to a point where I like went to write my to-do list in the morning and would just start crying. No matter how small or large it was, the fact that I was like about to dedicate my entire next 10 hours to this other job just made me want to cry. And I think when you get to that point where you've been working on a side hustle for such a long time that you know you'll continue to stay consistent, you know it's not going anywhere, you're confident in it, you have momentum, like you know it's going somewhere and you know that this is what you want to do, but all of your energy is going to something else. It just got to a point where I started freaking out, and a huge pain point for me, which I'm really vocal about, is finances. I didn't know how to go about like figuring out my savings and how to actually financially plan to quit. So my boyfriend helped me just figure out all my streams of income, which opened my eyes to this idea of like, we don't need to just have one stream of income, one full-time job or nothing. It's not full-time job or full-time content creator, and all of your money has to come from content creation. No, you can still pour a ton of like really inspired energy and focus on building your content and your brand and get your money from other places instead of desperately going out after brand deals. So I went to quit. I finally mustered up the courage, and I had already got my job at Rumble. So my plan was get a job where I don't take work home with me, get a job where I can go be in an environment that makes me happy, which is a workout class. Like I've always had this dream of just, which is so silly, but like working in a workout studio because that's where I'm my happiest. So I wouldn't have to take work home with me. I was like, I could do some stuff on the job at the desk when people are in class. Like it just made sense, even though I'd have to obviously cut back on a lot of expenses. Long story short, my boss was like, hey, wait, you have options. I know it doesn't seem like it, but we can figure out a freelance situation or part-time. And it just opened my eyes to this idea that like, there are other options rather than just full-time 9 to 5 or full-time influencer. Like there is an in-between, and you don't have to have this desperate energy trying to get brand deals. And you also don't have to be completely miserable in a 9 to 5. And essentially I kept my part-time job there, kept my part-time Rumble job, and it just opened my eyes to like, I can have multiple streams of income, and that might stress people out juggling all the jobs. For me, I can't sit in a 9 to 5 that I'm not happy with all day at a desk. I thrive running around the city and juggling different things and having a different schedule every day. Like that's where I thrive and I'm happiest because life seems a little more exciting to me. So that might not be for everyone, but that's ultimately what works for me. And I'm so happy I made the jump because it wasn't as easy as it sounds. It was definitely something I was thinking about for a long time.
Yeah, I loved hearing your story the first time. I love hearing it now. And this idea, especially when you say like, there's not just like, do your 9 to 5 or, you know, whether it's content creation or whatever side hustle or like passion that people have. And it's like either do one or the other. There's like this gray area that we don't even talk about. And as somebody who also like, I love being busy in college, I had almost like a similar thing where of course I was a student, but at my lowest, I held 2 jobs. At my highest, I held 5, and I was doing things all the time, and I loved it. And so hearing this, I was like, this is a way that you can kind of dabble in all of your interests, gain like actual experience in all of these things, because people need help. Like if you just ask, like, is there an option for this? Do you need help with this? Can I assist you with this? And kind of come from that point of like service, I would say. I've had great luck with people being like, yeah, or hey, I connect you that this person over here. So I love that you kind of opened your doors to that. Was that your plan coming out of the 9 to 5? And also I want to see, was that a PR job, your first job out of college? Like your first big job?
No, I'm like that person who changes their mind every year. So I've worked at 3 PR agencies. I used to work with talent. So like celebrity PR, which is a whole nother toxic beast of a situation. But I've been in PR, but several different agencies and companies.
Got it. Okay. So did you plan when you were like, when your idea was, okay, I'm going to quit this 9 to 5, did you have this idea of like, okay, this next transition is going to look like multiple streams of income? Or were you just kind of saying, okay, I'm just going to take the next step and then figure it out?
It was Rumble was going to be like in my head, almost not a full-time job, but like I would work there 5 times a week and it would be less money, but I'd be happier and have the time to dedicate to YouTube and podcasting, to then also have time to dedicate to pitching brand deals. Like my initial thought was I will have more time and energy to make more money on my social media platforms because I'm not running myself dry in this full-time situation. Once I heard that saying there are options from my boss, and once she offered me this leg of part-time, and in my head it was like temporary, but it's been almost a year now because I honestly don't even want to leave anymore because I'm still able, like I love working with workout classes. So as long as that's my client base, I don't mind doing it because I only have to do it 2 hours a day. And I still get that consistent income. I have the same amount of hours every week. I know I'm getting that paycheck. Same with Rumble, but there are also some weeks where I have less shifts than others. So it's not as consistent. But no, that was not the original plan. And then once I started just realizing, oh, there's like many different opportunities to make money. I don't just have to have this job or that job. Like I found myself wanting to learn more about YouTube and learn more about actually filming and not just like work for another vlogger who does exactly what I do and just like do it for someone else. Like I didn't want that, but I was like, if I can help a creator that I look up to that I can learn from a few hours a week or like go out and film with them, like that would be awesome. A great way for me to want to learn, but also get paid to learn basically and offer my services because at the end of the day, I recognize the value in all my different jobs and I know PR, I know email communication, I know corporate communication, I know how to coordinate interviews and scheduling because I did it for my celebrity clients and YouTubers. The ones I wanted to work with are essentially celebrities. So I've done personal PR. I film and edit for myself. Like you can recognize once you recognize the value in yourself and all your skills that you've obtained and everything you have to offer. I was like, creators need help in all of these different areas, but they also can't hire someone for every single one of those jobs because they're not a production company. So the fact that I can do all of that, like, wow, I can really be of service to a creator and learn. So the biggest lesson I then learned, I was just sitting on the couch. I reached out to 10 creators in New York City, like Kelly Stamps, like people that do unique things, whether it's how they film or what they film. Shelby Church answered me the same night. She was like, I'm actually considering moving to New York, so I'll keep you in mind. Okay. Next day, hey, so I think I'm moving to New York next month. Do you want to meet for coffee Sunday? Sure. Meet for coffee Sunday. She hired me on the spot and gave me her vlog and started training me on her camera like the next day. So the biggest lesson I then learned there is like, first of all, think about all the skills and all your experience you have and offer it to people that you admire and can learn from because you're going to make money, learn, and network. And there's like no greater value than that. So the biggest thing I also learned there is just reach out. Not like literally just reach out, because what happened with the other 8 creators I reached out to, they just didn't answer, or they said, thanks, I'll keep you in mind. So what? You put yourself out there. And Shelby always says it showed her that I was proactive because I was seeking out an opportunity instead of waiting for someone to like post one. So I think, and along with like having multiple streams of income, it's also like you can have your dream job if you just ask and show your value instead of being like, I want to learn from you. Be like, these are all the things I can do for you.
Wow, that's such good advice. The like, recognizing your value, just offering to somebody, literally just asking. I love that so much. And you mentioned that, the financial stress for you in transitioning from that 9 to 5 into your other like endeavors, but was there a mental strain as well? And this is a question definitely coming from personal experience. Like when I moved from I was a chemist. And so after college, I got like the chemistry job and like the big girl 9 to 5, whatever, did the thing, hated it. But I felt like I had a lot of eyes on me. And so when I decided to leave, the biggest hurdle wasn't the money. The biggest hurdle was the honestly embarrassment. I was like, this means that I failed. This means that I'm not smart. This means I couldn't do it. I couldn't stick it out with what people thought I should be doing. And that was it took me a long time, even after I left, to kind of get over that and get over myself and say, hey, like, this is what makes me happier. This is not any lesser than, like, just because I'm not doing a 9 to 5 doesn't mean that it's any lesser of a job than anybody else. Did you have that same issue?
I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's almost something I forget in my story because it was so short lived. I knew I was making the move. I was doing it for me. I was confident in that. But once I was doing it and like I was starting Rumble next week, like in my mind, I was quitting and I was working at a workout studio. Like that's how I envisioned it. I was quitting and I was working in a service based industry while trying to hustle and like fulfill my dream. Didn't realize I was going to be this entrepreneur and have 10 million streams of income, which I'm now proud of. But I remember talking to my therapist and being like, I don't know why I feel so weird about this. Like, what if someone from high school comes in to the Rumble studio to check in and like asks me what I'm up to? And I was literally rehearsing in my head, like how I can confidently share what I'm doing instead of just being like, oh, I just work here now. And like, I it's so weird to tap into it now because I feel so differently from this mentality now. But how I felt was like, I have a college degree. Why am I working at a front desk? Like
Yeah.
that was my mindset. And that's what I thought other people were going to think of me, even though I knew why I was doing it and what I was doing. And I believed in myself and my future and like that it would all make sense one day. But I had that insecurity of like, I have a degree and now I work at a front desk. Once you do it and once you can confidently share with people, like once you almost rip the band-aid of like sharing your story and being like, this is what I'm doing, you kind of get over that. But I 100% had that initial mental barrier of like, this is embarrassing. And I hate saying that because I don't think anyone should be embarrassed for working at a
Yeah.
front desk. But like, it's a thing when you leave 9 to 5 and you come from a background of like, you go to college, you graduate, you get your 9 to 5, and that's like what everyone around you in your circle's doing. Now I have so many friends, even like you, and like people that I can connect with now who are like me and like minded. But at the time, yeah, you feel embarrassed, but just know you will get to the other side 100% as long as you know your why behind it. Because then you can also share your why behind it. It helps you fight any insecurity you feel when someone does make you feel insecure inevitably. Like people fear for you, even family. They're like, are you sure? Like you're not going to have a steady paycheck. You're not going to be able to go out to dinners or whatever they're thinking. Like if you have a why behind it and a vision and you believe in your vision, that's going to keep you going and get you through. And exuding that confidence, it almost like they won't like to admit it, but people get jealous. When you say your why and why you're doing it and why you're leaving the 9 to 5, I can guarantee there are so many people who are like, oh, I wish I could do that, but I don't have a passion or I don't have a talent or whatever limiting belief that they have. There's some envy in there. And granted, there are people who just like want to have their steady income and then be able to like play hard after work and don't really want to be their own boss or anything. Like there are many, many people out there that are like that, but I can guarantee people will be jealous of your passion and your confidence to just do what you want.
100%. And that feeling after like post grad, I relate to that so hard. And I keep telling people, they'll ask if they're in college. I'm like, look, I wish I had never looked at a job board. My whole like senior year, which was about 3/4 of my senior year was just looking at job boards. I applied to like 50 jobs because I knew I wanted to work in marketing, but I had a chemistry degree, and go figure, they didn't know what to do with me. Wild. So I like basically already like gave up, said yes to chemistry, got accepted, whatever. I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And then I hated it, obviously. Yeah. But I was like, I wish I would have never looked at a job board. I wish I would have never looked at a job board. I wish I would have gotten across the stage, been happy about it, and then gotten like looked around and said, okay, what looks fun? What can I learn from? What internship can I get? What restaurant can I bartend at to get some money and then go travel? Just take a minute to figure out like who I was and what I wanted to do, what creative ventures I wanted to go into, and just take that second to pause, because this narrative that we're taught about, from college, and this is the path you go to, it crumbles down every time. Like even the people who do go into like these great jobs, and I hope that they're super happy, their path doesn't look like how they thought their path was going to look like. It never does. So I wish I would have just taken that time and then broken that narrative down to say, okay, we can literally do whatever we want to do. What do we want to learn about? What can we pursue? And kind of went from there.
It's interesting to me because things are happening so much earlier now. Like I think this is way more common. For me, I just like was graduating college. I knew I wanted to be in entertainment, and that was that. And like I was just applying. And I will say personally, because it was years ago and I didn't even start my channel yet at that point, to know that I would be consistent. Like now I'm confident in that when I start a project, I'm continuing with it. Like if I want to do something, I'm doing it. At that time, I didn't know yet because I was thinking about having a channel for 2 years and never started it. So I didn't have the confidence or believe in myself like I do now. Ed Milet, I keep saying this on my podcast, Ed Milet says you build a confidence through keeping promises to yourself. And I believe that's what has happened to me. But I don't regret my path, because I do think unless you have hesitations like you did, I didn't. So like I agree, follow your gut. I think the job place or workplace, the workplace and applying for jobs and interviewing and that whole process builds a lot of character. Yeah. And I know so many YouTubers or entrepreneurs that I look up to that say my biggest challenge was being a leader and hiring people and like not really knowing how to navigate that or how to be a good boss because I was never an employee. So that's also a great thing to know if you are someone who's looking to be an entrepreneur, but you're feeling a little trapped or stuck in this 9-to-5 situation. There's so much you can learn from it. Like I now know if I ever start a company, which I hope to, I can do my own PR, or I will know what to look for in a PR agency, or, like I'll know what a good price is. Like there is something to take from every job. And I know how to work professionally in a professional environment. I know how to work with clients. I know how people should treat me as a client when I'm the one hiring out an agency. Like I know strategy, how to come up with a good PR plan. Like even just the interview process and networking, learning how to network to get my jobs. Every single job, I've had 4, I think. Every single job I've had out of college came through networking with Tulane alumni or someone on LinkedIn. Like it was all from networking. It was never cold applying. It was, I put in the work to take them to coffee, ask good questions, do that with confidence, and like try to push past the nerves. And it always developed into a good relationship that led me to a job or literally a job offer or an interview offer. So all of that even prepared me for being able to podcast, because I did interviews and people interrogated me and I had to answer with confidence. So you can really take something from any job or just the application interview process in general. So I would say, don't even regret it, because I guarantee you took something from that experience. And everyone who's in the workplace now is going to see later on how it's helped them.
Oh yeah, 100%. I still, I'll toy back and forth and I'll took him. I'm like, oh my God, if I would have just like not gotten that degree. But I'm like, also if I were to do it again, I'd do the same thing, because
Right.
the biggest lessons that I've learned is from that job and from leaving that job and
Exactly.
that whole experience.
And making the decision, like
Yeah.
having to put yourself through leaving a 9 to 5. It's like a huge mental struggle,
Yeah. And
and
now it's a
you
huge
have
part of
to.
my identity.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to talk about your YouTube channel for a second.
Yay.
You mentioned like starting it. So I want to kind of dive into there a little bit. Your platform, it's all about wellness and self-care. And I want to hear the story of why you started that. But before even that, what made you pursue YouTube? And then what made you do the final yes? Because I think there's a lot of people, myself included, who, whether it's the podcast or starting Instagram, starting TikTok, whatever, they'll like say, oh, I kind of want to start this for a long time before they actually move forward. What got you there?
Which I have had the same experience, so I relate. For me, if we go way back when I was younger, I was in theater. I literally had like an agent and manager in middle school for commercial auditions. Like I've always been drawn to being on camera. Senior year of high school, I had an internship at a radio station. At that point, I thought I wanted to be the next Juliana Rancic on E! News, like everyone else thought at that age. And so I've always been drawn to on camera. At a certain point in high school, I stopped just like for social life, honestly. And I just wasn't tapping into that side of me anymore. I wasn't acting. I was really just focused on like socializing. And with the same in college, which I'm so happy about, by the way, because I had the best college experience ever. But I think I realized I became president of my sorority, which was unexpected. And it sort of tapped into that like leader, entrepreneurship side of me. And I found myself craving like that side of me again after college, where like I used to go to acting classes, and it wasn't even the acting, it was like I now looking back, it was like I wanted to be in that environment again where one, you're off your phone, and two, you're with other people who like get it, where
Mhm.
I was like so focused on social life that everyone around me was also just focused on social life and wasn't like the theater kid or anyone that like I remember connecting with when I was younger. So that's one part of it. So then senior year of college, I got sucked in as a viewer to YouTube, and I was obsessed with Lauren Elizabeth. And I
I
realized,
love Lauren Elizabeth. I feel like I grew up with YouTube. I'm so
exactly.
happy like we were the generation that like my first, I feel like everybody has their first YouTuber. Mine was Lauren Curtis. She was mine.
I think mine, unfortunately, well, maybe not unfortunately, but mine was Olivia Jade. I think was the first
She
one.
was a first for a lot. Like, I mean, she
I
paved the
know.
way.
She
Even
really
there's
did.
lots of things happened after that, but I mean, she created a business. Like she was one of the first. So gotta give her
Yeah. And
credit for that.
honestly, yeah, let's not get into that
Let's
whole
not get into
scandal.
that.
But at the same time, it was like her and Lauren Elizabeth whenever either of them posted. And what I loved about Lauren Elizabeth was I grew up mental health, depression, grief, suicide, addiction were all like regular topics in my household. Like it was a very open conversation. My sister went to rehab when I was a freshman in high school. Like I would go and listen to everyone else in the rehab speak. Like I was exposed to a lot, which I'm so grateful for, honestly. And so again, I was in this circle of people who like we just like weren't talking about mental health. It also wasn't like a trending topic at the time, like just wasn't spoken about. So I'm watching Lauren Elizabeth always talk about anxiety and panic attacks while also being so entertaining and funny. And I just remember sitting there being like, whoa, she did that. And so as I'm watching her, I'm like, I'm going to be a YouTuber one day. Like, who knows if I'll actually do it, but like the feeling kept growing and growing. And I remember over the summer during internships, I would commute on the train to my internships in New York. And every single day I'd listen to a YouTuber podcast. Like I would find all the YouTuber podcasts and how to start a YouTube channel. So I was doing that for over a year. And I realized I was like, wow, Lauren Elizabeth did this in middle school. And I'm sitting here, a senior in high school, being like, or a senior in college, being like, I can't do this. People will make fun of me, or like, I can't do this while I'm in college. I'll do it after when like I don't have to face my peers every day, which I still stand by, honestly. Like, it's so much more work than people realize. And I'm so happy I didn't put that on my plate in college and just enjoyed. But I was like, she did this in middle school when I was so bullied in middle school. And I kind of want to be that person that like other middle schoolers that felt like I did can look up to me and be like, wow, she's putting herself out there. Like, I want to put myself out there and like spread messages like we are right now. So it just like invigorated that in me. It was like, I've always wanted to be on camera, and now I'm watching someone like open up about anxiety and still have fun with YouTube. And I was like, I can actually have a message and also be on camera. That was the meaning behind it. Then all of the podcasts I was listening to was like, you have to niche down. You have to niche down. So I'm in the workplace. I'm in the workforce out of college. I'm working for celebrities, like doing the thing. And I was in a toxic environment. And the only time I had to myself to enjoy, which is self-care, was workout classes. I loved trying out new workout classes, and I followed Sweats in the City on Instagram, and they would review, but there's no one doing it on YouTube. Like, I, as a viewer, was searching YouTube, like SLT workout review, and there was no one doing it. So I was like, ding, ding, ding. This is what we'll do. This will be my niche. I'll do workout class reviews. And it was just too time consuming. I joined Erica Vieira's YouTube boot camp. I started making those videos, reaching out to studios. It was very time consuming. So I only got one a month. So I couldn't really be as consistent as I wanted to be. I knew I should be doing 30-day challenges and all these things that get views, but I didn't have the energy or the experience to like churn out videos. Like, it takes a minute. Pandemic hits. Long story short, I was like, this is my time. I have the time. I'm going to make sit down videos. I'm going to review online workouts. I'm going to review meditating for 30 days, all the things I know I should have been doing, but didn't have the time to do. I'd also just switched jobs to doing wellness PR, little more time. I was living at home. Anyway, went full force ahead, stayed consistent, got my first 1,000 subscribers. Now a year later, I'm at 5,000, and just really created that momentum for myself, kept the promise to myself, did it consistently, worked on my thumbnails, just worked on getting everything better. Then the podcast came in. I started doing consultations with Natalie Barbu for my YouTube channel, became really good friends with her. I pivoted from Erica's.
God, she just emailed me. So she's going to be on the podcast in a couple weeks.
Oh my God, she's the best. She
keeps like coming into my circle. Like, it's so weird. My friend's husband is now working on the app with her. And then I connected with one of her employees I didn't know was her employee. So she's going to be on the podcast. She's got her own podcast. That's how oh gosh, what's her podcast name? Let's Get Candid.
Oh yeah. I'm on that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah.
It's Natalie, like this very small
running in the same circles.
Yeah. It's bizarre. But anyway, that's great.
Yeah. So I mentioned I was in like Erica Vieira's boot camp, which is a YouTuber boot camp, but I found it so much better to do a few consultations with Natalie, where, by the way, side note, I believe in investing in coaching and things like that, because although it's a big expense, you gain so much more for it to then hopefully make money later on. But Natalie was doing some consultations. So I figured I'd do consultations with someone who's actually doing what I want to be doing instead of just like a strategy coach. So she really helped me. And I mentioned something about like, yeah, one day I'll do a podcast, like something like mental health, self-care related with entrepreneurship. And she was like, that sounds like such a good idea. Like, just do it now. And I was like, but, and she was like, what? Just get a microphone and do it now. And I was like, you're right. So I prepped, I reached out to people, I came up with a name, and I recorded episodes for like a month before releasing them, just so I could take the time needed. Like I said, everything takes more time in the beginning. Highly recommend that. Don't just start a podcast and like release the episode the next month.
Yeah.
I mean, the next week. Batch record beforehand. You can make your jingle. You can come up with your podcast art. Like, you can prep while you're recording some episodes. So that's what I did. And that was exactly a year ago from like last week. So my podcast is a year old and now we're here.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
I love that name, Dare to Self-Care. And you have different, I'd say, perspective on self-care as well. Like, it's a lot more than just like the bubble baths and, taking a wine night for yourself. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. I worry sometimes with the name of my podcast. I'm like, no, I'm not just saying like dare to take a bubble bath. Yeah. The whole point of like dare to self-care is like dare to do the work. There's so much. We'll take therapy as an example. That's a huge form of self-care for me because I'm a talker, clearly, and rather than like a writer. And it's not always easy. It's hard to unpack your entire life and past traumas and all of that to a new person. And also it's hard to take the risk of doing all that and then not liking your therapist and having to start all over again to find someone new. Like, don't give up. That's one example of like doing the hard work, because eventually after dishing out all my issues to her and talking through hard things and whatnot, now I have a safe space to go to and someone who knows my whole story, where if something else happens, which it will, because that's life, I can go to her. She knows exactly how I react. She knows my tendencies, like she knows everything. And now I have a comfortable, amazing, safe space to go to. So there's that. I hate saying meditation because a huge part of my podcast is sharing. One, there's so many ways to meditate. Two, you don't have to meditate to be mindful, but we'll use it as an example because it's tough. It's a muscle you have to exercise.
100%. Meditation is not a joke. That is one of the hardest skills to, I'm not even going to say master, because I am not a master, and it's like trying to get on a wobbly bike.
Well, and you can't master it, because I've had a meditation expert who created a whole workout class revolving around meditating before and after. And he was like, even people, and Jay Shetty says this all the time, he meditates 2 hours every morning. He still has bad meditations. Yeah, I know.
He meditates 2 hours?
Yeah, he was a monk. It's a whole thing.
Oh, I've got to listen
amazing.
To that story.
Check out his podcast. He's amazing.
Yeah, I've listened to a couple of them, but I'm going to need to find that story.
Yeah. So even he says, like, there's still times where he's thinking about everything he has to do today. Like, it's not like all of a sudden you master it and you're like, you get into a trance every single day. Like, it's hard. But once you realize the benefits of it, if it is something that works for you, and if you do work at it and you do keep consistent with it, keyword work, you can heal your traumas. You can be a more relaxed person, a less anxious person, like whatever it is. The point is, my viewpoint on self-care is taking care of yourself and choosing happiness and doing the work to achieve happiness, to relieve your anxiety, all the things, instead of like wallowing in self-pity, or which we all can do once in a while, of course. But I'm just saying, like, grief fucking sucks, but you have to either see a grief counselor or work out, or like whatever that is for you. It's like doing the work to find what does work for you, to be able to see that there is happiness on the other side of that work. And you don't have to sit with crippling anxiety or depression or whatever it might be. Like, if you put in the work and try things out, you can see a more calm, more self-love, more whatever you need in your life at the end of it. And you still have to practice it every single day after that.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work, but doing that work and making that choice and pushing forward is one of the most brave things that you can do.
Yes. And working, let's be clear, like, the work is to feel good. It's not just work to like kick your butt and feel nothing after. It's like, no, we're doing work because it's hard to get there and get yourself to do the thing. But once you're doing it, it's like a workout. Like, once you're doing it and after, you feel good. And that's all we want in life, is to feel good. And when you feel good, you attract more good things into your life. So it's doing the things that make you feel good, essentially. Like, self-care can be a hobby. It doesn't always have to be like a meditation or breath work. It could be making sure you get 10 minutes of your hobby, or turning your phone off for an hour before bed. Like, there are so many different ways to practice it. It's just about feeling good, because then you also don't have to rely on other people, and you can be a positive light and positive energy for other people. How many of us have had family members or people or friends that just drain our energy and like put all their negative, anxious energy onto you because they're not happy? You don't want to be that person. Yeah. So if we can all just spread the message of do the work to feel good and practice self-care, that's what self-care is to me.
I love that. I love that message. For anybody who is listening to this and like loving your story, wanting to pursue a creative career, or maybe just an untraditional path, want to start a YouTube channel, just want to start a podcast, just want to start whatever it may be for them, what's your advice for them?
Are we talking quitting a 9 to 5? You're talking starting, like putting yourself out there.
Just putting yourself out there, we'll say.
So I have a whole podcast episode on this that I felt like everything was flowing out of me. So like, this topic I'm so passionate about. For me, there's a few things. Number one, this is very unconventional, but I truly believe it's a huge step. Number one, you need to be that supportive person for other people that are putting themselves out there online. So if someone's writing, and we all we all have friends that do this. We've all done this ourselves. If you're in a group chat on Instagram, let's say, for example, and one of your friends posted someone else's Instagram of them singing, they wrote a song and they sung it on Instagram and they posted it in your group and they're like, oh my God, cringe, or something like that. Relatable, right? Yeah. Friends being like, why'd she post that? Or this is cringe, whatever. Be that person. If you're not a confrontational person, I'm not saying like curse your friends out. You can just not engage and go over to that person's post and say, wow, amazing. Good job. Good for you. Like, you can expect support in return, which you'll notice is you value it more than anything when someone actually.
Oh boy, does one DM, one comment make a difference.
Yes. And especially from someone like the ones that weirdly mean the most to me outside of like my closest friends and family is when there's someone from high school or college that you weren't that close with, that doesn't know your why behind it, or you haven't shared your story with, is like, by the way, I've been watching all your videos. Like, it's really cool. And like is genuinely supporting you. So be that person, because it'll come back around. And it's practicing also just seeing the good and the inspiration in other people's stuff. It makes you want to do it too. Instead of being like, that's embarrassing, I could never. You're changing the narrative and your perspective. So that's one thing. Number two, I always say journal on what lights you up. What friends or people in your life drain your energy, who gives you energy. Really focus on what lights you up, because that's what you should create content on, because that's what's going to keep you consistent. So for me, I feel, or what makes you feel your best? Mine's workout classes. So I was like, if I can't just be the workout class girl. So I have a bunch of different things that I'm also doing that make sense. I'm into like a little broader niche, but I do think like it's got to be a little niche so that like people land on your page, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, whatever, and they see in the bio or they see in your video themes, or both ideally, what you're all about. So mine's like NYC self-care wellness. So I'll do like wellness experiences in NYC. Like, it all kind of makes sense together. So pick topics that you're passionate about, not that you just see a gap in the market. Like, I did both. I saw a gap in workout classes on YouTube and I'm passionate about it, but I know I'd burn myself out if that's all I did. So I was finally able to be consistent weekly, like I said earlier, when I branched out a bit and also did meditations and also did vlogs and like really brought it all together. That brings me to my next point with YouTube specifically. I hate saying this because when you want to just be a vlogger, it kind of sucks to hear, but like, you can't just vlog at first.
Yeah. Well, 100%.
No one cares yet. No one cares yet. And if you're gonna vlog, be specific. So like, day in my life as a yoga instructor living in Seattle. Like, be specific so that people in Seattle, they're looking at like what it's like to be a yoga instructor there, then they'll find you. So it needs to be searchable. So there's ways to make a vlog searchable. You can also not even title it vlog and just see what the theme was. If you were talking the whole video about how to not burn out in your 9 to 5, you literally can just title the video, how to avoid burnout in your 9 to 5 job when you're feeling insane, instead of titling it vlog. Then it's searchable. People find your vlog and they get hooked in by your personality. So searchable content. I don't have Instagram tips other than use Reels because I hate Instagram, TikTok.
Oh my God, same. I want to fall in love with it and I can't. They're making me so angry. I was just having this rant in our group chat last night. We're all like, Instagram makes no sense. Nothing works and you don't know.
And I just hate taking photos of myself. Like,
it's so
my platforms, I hate it. Podcast and YouTube. I'm a chatter. I'm a host. I'm not like, I literally can't pose for the life of me. So I try with Reels, but Reels editing in the app, they literally delete my Reels every 5 seconds.
Oh my God, and there's glitches so much.
Right? I know. I hate it. So I started just posting my TikToks on there, even though that's what they don't want, but you're not letting me edit in there. So yeah, so I think those are my top tips.
I love it. I love it so much. Thank you so much for coming on. I remember I was going to say something else when you're talking about the vlogs. Do you follow Vanessa Ferriolo?
No, but I'll have to go check.
It's quite the name. She's really cool. She's on TikTok. She's got 2 different TikToks for her like Instagram strategies, and then another one for like fashion. And then her
Nice.
whole, she's very clear with her niche and her, when you look at her feed, you'll be like, oh, I totally understand. She's probably the clearest person that I've seen on the internet where you're like, I know exactly what I'm going to get. But something that she said that reminded me about, she was like, you'll look at these other TikTokers, these other whatever, and you're like, they're doing whatever, they get to post whatever they want. They could sing into the mic or like do, a little vlog, or they could do whatever. And like, they have success. They never post a niche. She was like, if you look at the Victoria Paris's, if you look at the J.C. Marie Smiths, you looked at any of those, they had like, go scroll all the way back.
Right.
They had a niche, and you have to drill into that until you can grow out of it.
It sucks. And it's like the worst thing, because I also agree. Like, I know Natalie's always like, you don't need a niche, but for me, it's more like a demographic niche. So like, who are you talking to and what are they interested in? And it's probably the same stuff you're interested in personally. So like, I have my buckets, like I said, and they all fall under like health and wellness, NYC lifestyle. And I know that sounds broad, but like everything I post, especially on like TikTok, I ask myself, does it fall into one of these 3 buckets? So don't do 3 random buckets, but you can do like 3, like do an overall niche and then put your 3 branches underneath it, and then make sure whatever video you're making falls into one of those. That's a way to just not burn out by doing too niche. But like you said, anyone you looked back at, it was either beauty in general, and maybe they were talking, there's skincare as one branch, there's makeup as another, there's tutorials as another, or there's product reviews as another. Like, there's ways to make variety and still have fun with your content while keeping it very focused in who you're targeting.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. This was such a great podcast. I thank you so much for coming on. I've loved having you on, and thank you for sharing your story and for being open, and thank you for being consistent on your platforms, because what you say on your YouTube channel, what you're saying on your podcast is all really important.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I loved this. You're an amazing podcast host. Let me just tell you.
Thank you. That's a big compliment. I really appreciate it. Guys, we're going to leave all of her social handles, her YouTube, everything down below. Go follow her on everything. You will love her content as much as you love this podcast. If you did love this podcast, go share it with a friend, because that's what friends do. Subscribe on Spotify, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, do all the things on all the channels, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.